Welcome to this week's edition of the YOUtopia Podcast, which we decided, should you wish, to watch this as well as listen to it. Aline is like me. She's a bit of a thing about the video. We all love a bit of video. We get to see the people. And so this particular episode of YOUtopia is coming to you not only in audio, but is coming to you in video as well. So without further ado, I have my amazing guest, Queen Aline, who has come to join me here today on the YOUtopia Podcast. Aline, welcome.
Thank you so much, Queen Clare, for inviting me today. We are here with royalty. Welcome to everybody who's listening. I'm so honored to be here to share my journey and, how I got here and to, hopefully inspire others who are perhaps struggling with depression, anxiety, addictions, and are looking for a way out. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's truly a privilege. Thank you.
And I'm right back at you. I'm so grateful that you're here because I absolutely know from all the experiences that I've had in my life that we meet people for an absolute reason. And my first experience of you and really getting to know you a little bit was going on my raw journey last year, which honestly, in the end, did it work for me? Not completely. Like, I love a lot of raw food and I eat quite a lot of raw, but a little bit like you, I live in a cold country. And when it comes to winter time, I am a little bit of a curry and stew girl. And so I like that. But I'm a true believer in as well that we need to try these things and it's about mixing it up. But going back to the original point, the thing that I was really intrigued about by you was your dedication, was your absolute, like, I have so much admiration. I did almost 60 days raw and I was like, this is kind of tough going. I did the 30-day juice cleanse, which I will admit I broke at day 26 and I ate some melon. But I'm kind of like, that's okay. When I say to people I broke, they go, what did you eat? I was like, melon. And they were like, perfect. What, you think you broke at eating melon? I was like, well, yes, because you weren't supposed to eat for 30 days. I think that, as you said, we get these beautiful examples of humans that we meet that go through really challenging experiences, and really everything for me you described was being human. But we've become a race of people that vilify other humans for being human. And a big part of why I do what I do and why I wanted to create the YOUtopia podcast was about saying, look, there's a really different version of YOUtopia for everybody. And actually for me, YOUtopia in the now, and it's why YOUtopia comes from the experiences that we've had. So tell us a little bit about how you've got to where you are today and what you've lived to become the version of you that you now are.
Thank you for that. Yes, well, YOUtopia, I love the name of the podcast. First of all, it's so brilliant, and it comes back to the idea of, we have this idea of creating heaven on earth, right? And what I came to understand is that I have always dreams of creating this heaven on earth, but first I had to start with myself. Creating heaven outside starts with creating heaven within. And, coming from a place of, very severe, like eating disorders. I was bulimic for over 20 years of my life. So a lot of, negative relationship with food, anorexic in my younger years. So I was like struggling with the food aspect, and perhaps on some level it was not perhaps for sure it was bringing me to this path, right? Because I felt discomfort in my bodies. I felt like a self-hatred. So I came to understand that if I wanted to serve and to help, I was going to have to do it from my place of like my biggest pain, right? Which was first and foremost food addictions, and then it transformed into alcohol, cigarettes, weed, and then it progressed into cocaine and then crack cocaine. In my later years, I already had my child when I got more into the drugs due to a bad breakup. Really, that's what like cracked it open, and I just went into a deep depression, was suicidal. I had been suicidal in my younger years too, but this was like I just didn't want to live anymore. And that's really what brought me to the plant medicines. I did ibogaine. I started doing ayahuasca, mushrooms. So I started using the plant medicines as well in my spiritual awakening. And that's where I really got a lot of downloads and a lot of messages from God, messages from the plants that I was meant to help, I was meant to serve, I was meant to share. And I had to be 100% devoted, dedicated, and completely, passionate about this lifestyle, because for me anyway, I do believe that everybody has their own path. Everybody's on their own path. My daughter, I have a 12-year-old daughter. She is not plant-based even. I do not impose it on her. I just try to be as open as possible, because I realize everybody's different. Everybody's on their journey, and not everybody is necessarily going to adopt this lifestyle. I'm here to help people be more raw, more plant-based. And if it calls to somebody to be that path all the way, then great, I'm there to support them too. But usually people will be like, 80% raw, and they'll go and they'll be like, you know what, I still want my little cooked food here and there. And that's great. Doing 80% raw is incredible. I say, if you could be mostly fruits and veggies, and then you have one meal a day, like, you're going to be living heaven on earth. You're going to be great. Your digestion is going to be on point. You're going to have a good mood. You're going to improve your health a lot. So that's kind of the goal. And being in tolerance, being in unconditional love for myself is the most important. And also understanding, like, that I was going to say this, that because of all the juice cleansing and all the fasting that I've done, for me anyway, like eating a little bit of cooked food, it doesn't serve me anymore, so I'll I have to honor that and respect that. So I really had to work on my addictions, because of course I would love a plate of, beans or, chickpeas or anything like that. But it'll, first of all, it'll put me to sleep. It'll knock me out. And then the next days I'll be depressed again. So for my own mental health, I've come to understand that I have to be raw. And I almost, I want to say I don't have a choice, but I always think we have a choice, right? But it's almost like I was cornered by life to be like, this is what you need to do to feel your best, to not be depressed, to be your most vibrant self and be in purpose. Because if not, I don't know, I wasn't even functional before.
And you know what? I'm going to put it out there. You do have a choice, and your choice is to be raw, because actually, one of the things that I've learned on my journey over the years is listening to my body is something that it took me a long time to know how to do. And as you say, when you listen to your body and really listen to what it is telling you, because it does tell you very clearly what it doesn't want. I mean, it's like the whole thing going, I don't get me wrong, like I've done all sorts of different things. I drank quite a lot when I was younger, and it was interesting because I do still drink now, but I can drink very easily in moderation. I like a little gin and sparkling water. I don't really drink wine anymore because my body doesn't like it. So, very occasionally I will have it, but on the whole now I don't, because I suffer the consequences if I do. But a friend of mine was saying to me, oh, I've given up drink because I couldn't take the hangovers. And I suppose my answer to that was, well, why were you drinking to the point that you were getting a hangover? That's the bigger question for me here. It's not actually the alcohol. It's why were you using that to get to you to that point? And like you say, it's about that service to humanity. And part of the whole purpose of YOUtopia and why I do this is because I want to say to people, look, there's a really different version of YOUtopia for everybody. And the beautiful thing about what you've achieved is you've found yours through going down a lot of roads that were really painful, that were really challenging. And again, I always say experience is the mother of all lessons, isn't it? Because you can't teach somebody experience, can you? So out of all the things that you've lived, what have been the most powerful things that have really kind of got you to this place today, as well as food? Because obviously food has been a massive part of that, hasn't it?
Yes, definitely. You mean like some of the challenging things that brought me here? Mm-hmm. Definitely becoming a mother, having a child, being a single mom was definitely challenging. Learning to love unconditionally and take care of another little person has definitely been an amazing learning experience, and also very challenging on many
Isn't
levels.
it just? I get that
Definitely, being in toxic relationships also, I give thanks to all these situations, but being in narcissistic abusive relationships where I felt lesser than, where I felt like I didn't have a voice, I wasn't valued, I wasn't seen, definitely helped me to like bring that tiger out in me too, to be like, hey, this is enough. And to be a voice as well for women to empower themselves, to step out of victimhood and be single if they need to. I've been single for 7 years, so I am not afraid to be alone anymore, where for the first large part of my life I was always in relationships, always codependent, constantly needing approval from men. And now it's like really brought me to this place of loving myself. I had a narcissistic mother as well, quite with mental health issues as well, so that was definitely challenging, but it's all been like part of my growth, part of my emancipation journey, and finding kindness and compassion in my heart for people who struggle with mental health illness and addictions as well. So yeah, but I would say like the depression definitely is what brought me to the drugs and alcohol, because it was self-soothing, and I have a lot of compassion for people who do use, because it's self-medication. It's nothing more than that. Like, we do all kinds of stuff to feel better, to numb the pain and to just barely survive. It's a survival mechanism. So yeah.
And it is, and I think the interesting part of that is we're not taught how to express our emotions, are we? We're not taught how to deal with our emotions, and everything that you're talking about is emotional. It's all about emotion. And if we, now that we're in this era, I believe that we're in an era of heart and soul now, and we're in the era where the human race is truly going to come together in a bigger way than it ever has in any of humanity. And I believe that we've had to go through, as I've already said, everything that we have. There's so many of us that, I said it on a call just before you, if the universe had sat me down like 25 years ago and said, right, Claire, this is the plan, I would have gone, seriously, honored, like absolutely honored, but like, you totally got the wrong person. I cannot do that. Do you, like, really? I don't know where you're coming from with your request here, but this is not within my realm of capability. And it's only in living it and in experiencing it and going to those depths that we actually grow as a result of them, isn't it? So now that you have experienced everything that you have, and now that you've been through all of these things, and now you have been given clear life experience of how it's you didn't come here to live, what is your version of utopia now? Tell us, what does it mean to you? What is utopia for you now, from this beautiful space that you've created for you?
Utopia now, well, this is part of my utopia, making juices every day. So I love juicing. I make that my meditation every day. I am on the liquids only, so that's like part of my meditation, grocery shopping, picking the fruit, thinking about fruit, sharing in our support community that we have online. So I help support other kings and queens that are in their transition, in their juice cleanse, in healing themselves from, cancers, diabetes, eating disorders, addictions, all those things. So for me, utopia is being of service to others, feeling like my journey has been there to help people, learn and feel hope, feel inspired that it's possible, and really making the connection between the mind and the body that, I was taking a lot of antidepressants and pharmaceuticals for a while. So part of my utopia is helping people to reconnect to themselves and to know that they don't need those medications, that they need to heal the gut, they need to heal their first brain. This is what I think is the first brain is inside.
Totally agree.
So when this is healthy, then this functions better. So there's a lot of misconceptions around what is health, what is mental health. And so that's part of my work in the world is that each person that awakens, each person that becomes their own happy self, then they create happy communities, happy families, and they start to plant fruit trees. So that's my dream as well, which is also what I'm working on right now in Belize. We have a beautiful resort, and we also have a farmland that moving forward, we will be moving back there, my daughter and I. And so we are in the process of planting a lot of fruit trees and creating the space for people who want to come and build a home. It's going to be a, Christ-based, God-based community, because it's very important to me to have it with, the Christ consciousness. And people could come and live in community, live in harmony with nature, with the trees, with the birds, all organic. So that's my heaven on earth, is like creating this microcosm of what I feel should be a macrocosm. Like we should all be eating fresh fruits and vegetables. We should all be like, abundantly able to eat healthy. It's crazy that junk food is so cheap and eating healthy is very expensive. So I know it's part of the system, but I really feel like a happy world starts with, a happy body. I don't think there would be like any of the world wars that are going on, any of the problems of the world, if everybody took responsibility for their health and didn't plant medicine, ate some fruit. It'd be a much happier world.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I actually I have my own vegetable garden in my back garden. Obviously it's there's only a certain amount of things that we can grow in the UK because of our climate, but I do have my own red currant bushes. Oh my gosh, there's an enormous bee. I've just got to let this bee out because it's like got stuck on the door, but it is absolutely huge.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Oh wow, it was literally like that. It was absolutely huge. Wow, that's my first bee I've seen this year. Hello, Mr. Bee. So I grow blueberries, strawberries, gooseberries, and red currants. And then I actually have an apple tree in my garden that is 100 years old. It's a cooking apple tree. And it was planted pretty much just when my house was built. So and when we had it, we had to have it cut a couple of years ago because it was just getting so huge. It was like taking over the entire garden. And it's been a bit upset since. I'm hoping this year it might have some fruit, because we really upset it cutting it, but it was like, right, it had to happen. But the guy that did it, he said, you don't see trees like this anymore. He said, you just don't see fruit trees this old. And like you, I actually have an app. I have an app called the Tree app. And every day I plant a tree on my app. Now, it isn't a fruit tree, but it's a tree. Because I, like you, if people were educated in the right way, and it's the same in this country, crap food is cheap. Good food is expensive, and it's something that I'm absolutely determined, and maybe that's another reason for us talking today, to change that. Because why are fruit and vegetables so expensive? They are like so cost effective to grow, and I absolutely love. I bought some garlic the other day, and it's the first garlic I've bought in 3 years, because I usually grow enough that it will last me my entire year then until I plant my next lot. And and I've got onion sets ready to go in they've got to go in the next week. You have to plant them on a waning moon because otherwise they don't take. But I grew up with we grew so much of our own food. And I think, as you say, a little bit like you, my little girl is going to be 7 in a few weeks. On the whole, she does eat pretty much a plant-based diet. She's at that age where she's kind of really picky about everything that she eats right now. And that's okay, because I didn't have anorexia and bulimia when I was younger, but I had a really dysfunctional relationship with food because my mum had a really dysfunctional relationship with food. And so that went into me. And, and I've never really been a big meat eater. I actually went vegetarian when I was 11. Didn't start eating meat again until I was in my early 20s. And then I've never really eaten it in a big way. Very occasionally now I might eat it, but on the whole, my entire diet is plant. And as we're now getting into the warmer, and I said to you just before we came on, I went outside and like the air temperature has warmed and it's so lovely. And it's like the summer is coming, and as you know, when it comes to summer, I pretty much eat raw because I actually love making beautiful salads. You know, you can make a plate of rainbow food. There is nothing more amazing than eating a rainbow on your plate, is there? It's just the most beautiful thing.
Yes.
But I think it comes down to education, doesn't it? It comes down to teaching people and actually opening their eyes, because so many people don't realize. I mean, we've had the old adage, you are what you eat, for years, but people don't realize the stuff that's in these foods that goes into you that really causes so much problem.
Yeah, exactly. We've been disconnected on purpose. You know, we've been programmed in a certain way with commercials, with indoctrination, with the food guide. You know, it's all done on purpose. So once we start to realize that these foods are making us sick and making us dependent on their medication, right? Because it's all the same, the food companies, the big pharma, like they all work together to make money from us. So a healthy person is no money for them. So once we start to, you know, separate ourselves from that and see the truth and that these fruits are food. And honestly, like I used to think that was crazy too. When I started my plant-based journey, to anybody who's listening or watching that thinks, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to live off fruits and veggies. That's insane. You know, like how restrictive is that? And honestly, I used to think that too. So when I started my plant-based journey 8 years ago, I knew I had to go raw. I got the calling to go raw back then, but it took me 8 years of cleansing, detoxing, getting the parasites out, getting the mucoid plaque out, which I also support people in doing. I had to remove the old gunk, the waste, because that gut microbiome is what craves those foods. So it took me all those years to, you know, the rice, the pasta, the breads, the fake meats, you know, I had all that in transition. And now, as I got cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, I didn't need those foods anymore. So it's not even an issue. I don't even, you know, sometimes I'll think about bread, I won't lie, but I'm not like craving it. You know, it's not the same, like, oh, I have to have it. And if I don't have it, I'm going to have a meltdown because I've been healing myself. So now I feel like this is so expansive of a lifestyle. You know, I'm like, oh my God, I get to eat all these fruits and vegetables. This is my nourishment. I go to the grocery store and I look around and I'm like, that's not even food. The granola bars, the cereals, the canned food, like it's not even food. But back then it was food to me, you know, because I was eating all the regular, you know, the hot dog, the cheeses, the cereal, the boxes, the box packaged food. But it's like reprogramming ourselves day and day over and over again. And sometimes it starts with just one change. One change in a day can make a huge difference. Like changing the breakfast, for example. Like breakfast is not supposed to be a big, heavy, dense meal. Like if we just switch the breakfast to a juice or a smoothie, like it could be a dense smoothie with chia seeds, a lot of bananas, dates, berries, just that will like alkalize the body and reset the mind for the whole day, you know, and it'll help to make better choices. So maybe you'll want a salad for lunch and maybe you'll have a cooked meal for dinner, but at least it's consistently, you're going to start cleansing, you're going to start seeing mucus coming out and old waste coming out just from making that one change. So that's kind of where I help people to start with if they've never done this before.
Yeah, and I'm really, really glad you shared that, because I think that what you just shared is the absolute key to it. Because I was talking to Tracy, mutual friend of ours, not last week, the week before, and we were talking about the problem that a lot of people face is they try to go from kind of down there to up here in one step. And actually they try to cut everything out and do it all in one step, and then question why it didn't work or why they fell off the wagon or why they went back again, because there's like a pyramid, isn't there? There's a process to this. And as you say, actually, again, you know, life has conditioned us into wanting results like yesterday. I mean, let's face it, you know, we can all be guilty of using Amazon, and we order it and Amazon delivery is like sometimes 10 o'clock today. You don't even have to wait until tomorrow. And so we've become very conditioned into this culture of these instant results. But you know, like you, I say to people, look, if you've been putting shit in for 30 years, don't expect it to clear in 2 days. You know, it's a process. And that process that you have just described is where people need support from people like you. Because if we don't go through this process and we don't take those steps and do it in a logical order, of course you're going to fall off the wagon. And actually falling off the wagon for me is part of the journey. Would you agree with that?
100%. 100%. That's how we learn.
Yeah.
That's how we learn. Sometimes I don't know anybody. I'll say this. I don't know anybody who's done it overnight.
No.
Anybody who's done it overnight. I don't know anybody. Well, very few have been sober overnight, but usually I'll say 99% of the time, it takes a few relapses to realize what is going on, even for our conscious mind, our higher self, and our ego to kind of, like there has to be a separation. There has to be like, at some point it was so unconscious is what I'm trying to say, is that the habits were so unconscious. It's like, I'm going to eat. I'm going to smoke. But then if you take a time to stop, let's say you stop smoking for a couple of weeks and you start feeling great, you start feeling amazing. And then you go back to that first cigarette, then you're like, wait a minute, like I'm feeling dizzy. I'm feeling nauseous. I'm not feeling so good. So it's like, then you start, but you might be addicted again for another few months, from that one cigarette. And then it takes another time. So for me, like even smoking cigarettes, everything, it's taken me a lot of relapses. I would stop drinking for 6 months and then go back and binge. I'm one of those people, like if I start, like I can't stop. So it would turn into a binge, and I would end up in the hospital. I would end up back in rehab because I was like in a coma, because those relapses were and they were getting more intense and more intense. As with the food, like if I go back to eating a cooked meal, this is just where I'm at, like I will feel it. I will be, oh my gosh, I will be mucusy, I will be constipated, I will bloat right away. So it's part of the journey for sure. And it takes a lot of surrendering. I think like those relapses help us to fully surrender, and it's like we stop fighting. I used to be angry that I couldn't drink. Now I'm like, I'm in full surrender that I should never have a drink. That's just my journey. And
again, I think the other thing is when we really look at these things and when we really kind of break it down to why. I'm a big advocate of why. I love why. For me, why did I start drinking? Because it was the trendy thing to do when I was a teenager, and because that's what my parents did. I didn't actually like alcohol when I was younger. And, and the interesting thing for me, after I did the cleanses last year, I didn't drink for months afterwards. And I felt really good. And then when I did have a drink, I had like the tiniest little bit. And that was good. And like now I've stayed with that. I don't need, and I am somebody, and it's a psychological thing, because I don't need alcohol at all. I function really nicely without it. But it's that whole desire of sitting down and telling myself that to relax, I need to have a drink in my hand. But actually, I can really relax very nicely with some sparkling water, with a slice of lemon and some fruit in it. I love that. That is, for me, is like, wow, it's just, like you say, it's that freshness. And again, it's about, in this kind of process of elimination, in this detox process, you get your taste buds back, don't you? And you start to taste everything. And it's like you say, there is one of the most interesting things for me, and I'm sure it's a question that you get asked a lot, and I get asked a lot, is people are like, well, what do you eat if you don't eat meat and fish? Like, I bet your eating's really boring. And I'm like, man, my food is off the charts. Like I eat some seriously amazing stuff. And it's like you say, it's about that habit. It's about that change. It's about that mindset. It's about completely shifting everything from, I always say that we're born into this default setting. We're born into the default of whatever the people around us want to do. And like with my little girl, she occasionally eats a bit of meat. She doesn't like beef. She's never eaten that, which kind of suits me down to the ground. She doesn't really she tried chicken a couple of times. She kind of likes it, then she doesn't. She'll occasionally eat a bit of sausage. And I'm like, for the love of God, if you're going to eat any animal, you want to eat a dirty pig. I'm like, really, Olive? And she just kind of laughs at that. But, I don't force it on her, but I encourage her to make healthy choices. And like you say, it's also about educating her. Like now she's really starting to understand the importance of the variety of food that she eats, because we've just hit an issue with her eyes. She's 6 years old and she's got an issue with her eyes. And I'm going, right, what's the lesson in me for this? The lesson for me in this is that maybe I've allowed her to be a bit too selective with what she eats. And I've said to her, you know, we've just getting her food allergies tested, looking at what she's deficient in. So now we can start on the road of saying, right, what do we need to put in your diet, and how much more do we need to experiment with what you're doing? Now, I'm actually really proud of that, because whilst I'm not happy that we've hit the problem we've hit, what I'm doing is saying, well, okay, I'm dealing with it in a really different way to how most parents would. I'm not going down the road of the optician said, oh, well, she just needs to wear glasses. Well, that's your opinion. We'll go with the glasses at the moment if that's going to make her life slightly easier right now. But actually, we're going to go to the underlying cause. We're going to deal with what the root cause is here. And for me, that's everything that you're about. It's about going to, you know, where it comes from and how we can become more because of it, not in spite of it.
That's really amazing that you're saying that, because most people wouldn't even make the connection between an eye issue and detoxification. You know, they just accept it as, okay, this is the condition. This is what I need to go with, just like they would accept a diagnosis of cancer, just like they would accept a diagnosis of, you know, diabetes, and okay, well, that's life. I just have to accept it. But, you know, we come with certain genetic predispositions, some certain baggage also from our ancestors, some weaknesses, but we can absolutely change our DNA. We can absolutely, like, you know, create some big changes in our bodies. Like, we don't have to be diabetic. You know, my grandmother, God rest her soul, like, she was very, very overweight. My whole family on my mom's side is overweight. And it's like, I do not want to, I'm fighting hard against my own, you know, predispositions, and also through my habits, I know I'm not going to activate those genes. You know, I have other issues, but I'm not going to, you know, activate those genes. But if I start eating like them, then I'm going to have the same issues. I'm going to have the diabetes, I'm going to have the eye problems, all of this premature aging. So there is a lot of things that we can do to take charge of our life. Yeah, I've heard of people reversing their eyesight, eye issues with detoxing, fasting, juicing. So just increasing their vegetables, you know, fruit. My daughter too, like I said, you know, she has a lot of veggies and fruit, but I let her make her choices. And I think with love and kindness, they will come this way, you know, they will gravitate, because they have the example too. If we were eating chips and all kinds of junk all day long, like, that's what they see, that's what they're going to grow up doing. But you know, if they have the choice and then they see us as the example, they'll come this way, hopefully. And if not, then that's their own journey too. Maybe they have to go through their own issues in order to come around and see the truth. But at least they're exposed to it and they know that they can heal themselves.
I love it. It's so true, because like you say, you know, at the end of the day, our bodies will respond to how we treat them. Our bodies will respond to what we put in them. And I absolutely believe that everything is reversible. And, you know, I've got my eye issue, they tell me, is age related. So, you know, I've been working on that. I just have readers. And, you know, I'm actually 2 years down the line, I've just had my eyes tested. And because of all the clearing and the detoxing and everything that I eat, my eyesight hasn't degenerated at all in the last 2 years. It's exactly the same as it was 2 years ago. So what that's telling me is, well, actually, I mean, the optician was kind of a bit like, oh, well, you know, there's nothing in it. We don't really need to do anything because your eyesight hasn't changed. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? And he said, well, yes. And, you know, and it was kind of a bit like, well, I don't really know why you like this, but I'm not going to say anything because I almost don't want to acknowledge the white elephant in the room, that you should have had degeneration. And, you know, and I say to people, ultimately, I look after my body like I should, the most valuable asset that I own, because everything else in my life, apart from the people, are replaceable. Everything is replaceable. I'm not replaceable. You know, I might be able to go and get somebody else's heart if something goes wrong with mine, but actually I've got a really good one that's served me well for 46 years. And now what I want to do is like power it up even more. And that's the thing is, you know, as you say, we're here to lead by example. And in leading by example, we can only be the guiding light, can't we? If you force somebody to do something, it's like I say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can put salt in its mouth, but that's doing it under false pretenses. And actually, that's always going to end up in a kickback. So the best thing to do is is being the change that you want to see in the world. As cheesy as it is, you know, that's how we are here to live, isn't it? So on a final note then, I love asking people this question, and people always kind of go, "Ooh, I like that question," or "Oh my God, I've never been asked that." So if Aline didn't exist, why would we need to invent you?
Oh my. Well, definitely to bring Zaya into this world, my amazing daughter, and to share the joys of raw living foods, and to help others remember. I think I'm here to help people remember who they are deep inside. I call myself Queen Aline because people have given me that name, and also I've received it from various sources of plant medicine where it was just like it helped me to remember, that I am royalty. And so from that remembering, I claim it, and I also help others to remember who they are. And so in that remembering, then they start to love themselves more. They're like, oh, I'm a queen. Oh yeah, I'm a queen. Wait a minute. And it might feel a little uncomfortable at first, kings and queens, but it's not like, we're not here to rule over anybody. We're not here to be like, the traditional, definition of king and queen is like being king and queen, owner of our own domain, our own queendom, our own kingdom, being the master of our life, and in co-creation with God. We're kings and queens of the Most High. I say this too because I think it's important to know that we are in co-creation with our creator. And yes, we have our heart that leads, but I really feel like he guides our steps and he helps us to get to where we need to be. So once we realize that, then we start loving ourselves. We give up the toxic behaviors. We, are not afraid to be on our own. We're not afraid to adopt this lifestyle too. For me, God has been so helpful in my detox process, because sometimes it could be getting really intense. I know we're wrapping it up, but I just want to say this about detox really quick, that sometimes through the transition, we have like certain moments that are really difficult and challenging because of, like you said, years and years of poor food choices or toxic behaviors. So, not to be afraid of those detox symptoms, to know that like you're well guided, you're well protected, and you will not die from it. That's the opposite. You will die from continuing those habits if they don't come out of the body. So if they're coming out in the form of like a cold, a flu, mucus, even fever, chills, like anything that we call a cold is detox, or even, dizziness, hair falling out. Like, I'm just being real. These things happen, and then they regenerate. We come back even better than before. Like, I'm still in my transition period. I know I'm going to look and feel and be even better in a few years, because I'm still getting rid of a lot of stuff that's been in there. So not to be afraid of it. Prayer has been helpful, meditation, a little bit of like gentle movement, some rebounding, and joining a community too. So, we have a support community. If you need one, you have a support community as well. So join, a support loving tribe is really helpful to help you like in your journey. For sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you will have details of how you can connect with this amazing lady somewhere around this. I don't do the tech part. I do the talking. So there will be something around that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm actually going through hair loss at the moment through the detox process. I mean, like, my hair is literally falling out, like, I was getting a bit freaked out. And then I started doing some research, and like you said, it's like this stage of the detox, there's so much that's happened in my body. Now it's come up to here, and this is the part that's now happening. And as you say, it's that beautiful process. So I want to say thank you for you coming today to share your raw, real honesty, because this is what the world needs. And you've talked about a truly beautiful version of YOUtopia. I cannot wait for you to set your commune up and your community up in Belize, because I'm coming to see you there. And we will be doing some beautiful, beautiful everything, which is the elixir of life. And what can be more beautiful than something that grows because you nurture it and look after it? And that is what we are as humans, isn't it? We are beautiful beings that grow because we get the love, support, and nurturing that we need. And you have been thrown your challenges to be able to give that gift to humanity now. So thank you. Thank you for
so
all the shit
much.
you've experienced to become
Yes.
the beautiful human that you are today. And
Thank
thank you for coming and talking to us on YOUtopia.
My
So
pleasure.
if you want to watch more episodes, then please check out the podcast where there'll be lots of more episodes. This video is actually going to be on YouTube as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, hello, YouTube. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. And thank you for taking the time to expand your mind, because that is truly the era that we are now part of. And thank you to the amazing Aline for coming and sharing her truth and her beauty with us today. I am truly grateful for you.
My pleasure. Pleasure was all mine.
Catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.